Hey, it's Joe here. Hope you're all well. Hey, have you ever gotten angry and not actually known why? Well, episode 80 of Insights podcast has just dropped now, and I'm sure you'll find it a fascinating insight. Enjoy. Bye for now. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 80 of Insights. Episode 80, my Lord. I hope you're all doing great. It's Joe here. We're about to hop into today's fascinating topic of, it's more of a question I've posed here, which is, do you ever get angry and don't know why? Well, here's why, and we're about to dive into that. Just before we do, just some quick housekeeping. For those of you who are genuinely curious to go deeper and to understand yourself more from a behavioral profiling standpoint, on November 24, 25, I have a free training called the Free Introduction to eDisc. It's a day and a half's deep dive into how to understand ourselves in a more deeper, profound way, and also, equally, if not even more importantly, how to read the play in our relationships and understanding other people. And for those of you who are coaches, consultants, HR sort of backgrounds, beyond the free training, there's an opportunity, of course, to continue deeper down the rabbit hole and become internationally accredited as a behavioral profiler as well. But the free training is standalone. So even if you're not interested in doing any accreditation training as a free event, and it goes for a day and a half. It's a standalone training where you'll receive outstanding value. So if you want to click on and get your name down and get yourself registered, that's the word I was looking for, registered. All you need to do is go to joepane.com.au and you'll see it there on the front page. Pretty straightforward. Alrighty, so welcome to episode 80. I really enjoyed putting this one together for you, and let's have a deep dive in. So, do you ever get angry and don't know why? Well, here's why. So, to understand this, we need to first look at the nature of emotions. Emotions are fluid. This is really important to get. They're fluid. They move. They don't stay still. Very much like the waves at a beach. There is a clue also inside the word emotion. You know, dump the E, and what you've got left with is motion. Now, I don't want to sound all smarty or anything, but that's a linguistic fact, is that the bulk of the word emotion is made up of the word motion. So motion, to motor along or move along. Emotion can also be understood as an energy, because it is an energy. We know that it's energy because it's always moving. We also know that it's energy because everything in the universe is energy, as I've alluded to in previous podcasts. So we know that energy is always moving, and because energy is always moving, it is always transforming from one form to another. Energy never stays still. Like energy, emotions don't stay still. They need to be released so they can be transformed into some other kind of energy. Sometimes these unexpressed emotions or energy are released as anger, or its direct opposite, like uncontrollable laughter. It's like the two ends of that spectrum. Either way, this is a spontaneous combustion of energy being released all in one hit. So we need to get that first. The next bit is that emotions are either expressed consciously or projected unconsciously. The more unexpressed, so in other words, trying to keep the energy still, so the more unexpressed the energy is, trying to keep it still within your body, the more unexpressed it is, the more likely it is that you will project that energy onto somebody else at some other point in time. Projecting it means you experience some kind of trigger in somebody else that feels like it's them, but it's actually us, if that makes any sense at all. So another way of putting it is that emotions are either expressed or they're suppressed. Now, when emotions are suppressed, they sink deep into the sea of consciousness, which essentially means that these emotions become buried beneath the surface of our awareness. If we continue to suppress emotions rather than expressing them, we build layers and layers of unconscious memory, which at some point needs to be released. It just has to be. And if it's not released consciously, that is, in healthy, resourceful ways, it will find a way to release itself in the most inappropriate of moments. Like one of my mentors who way back in 2003, her name's Marlise Carroll, a brilliant, amazing spiritual teacher, of mine, where she said it's like a beach ball. You know, the beach ball, at one point you're trying to hold this big beach ball under the water, but you can't hold it down there forever. At some point, a wave will come along or something will happen and the ball will slip through your hands and will pop up hitting you in the face. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. So the two combustive ways which suppressed emotion can be released, as I just said a moment ago, is either via anger or intense out of control laughter. So for example, at the age of 10, I had my first ever experience of someone close to me dying. My grandmother had suddenly passed. This was the first time my parents were having to try to explain death to a 10-year-old and my then 8-year-old sister. They didn't do a great job. They were doing the best they could. I get that, but they didn't do a great job because it was all clouded with shrouds of secrecy or, even some vague platitudes. I had no idea how to feel or how to respond. It was the first time I had seen my mother cry. Didn't see my father cry, by the way, until decades later at the loss of his brother, which is, I find, astounding. So as a child, these swirling, confusing emotions had nowhere to go because there didn't seem to be a person or a place to talk about how I was feeling. And I wouldn't know how to express it anyway. I would have needed some guidance on that. And by the way, we are going to answer the question, why do we get angry when we don't know why we're getting angry? We're getting there, and how to express it. So we'll get to that in a sec. So what followed with the passing of my grandmother and me not knowing how to feel, not knowing how to express it, was an incredible experience of an unconscious release. So during the wake, I was playing with my cousins and something, I can't remember what it was, just set me off into crazily intense fits of laughter like I've never experienced before. I was blinded by my stream of tears from my laughter. And there was a bunch of us in the same space, in the same energetic space. We were just laughing and laughing like till our guts hurt. I remember feeling strange that we were laughing together so hard, at the same time feeling strange that this was happening at my grandmother's funeral, right? Now, on the other hand, to give you the opposite end of the spectrum, I've also experienced the opposite of this, specifically anger. Of course, we all have. It had been months and months into our renovation journey. And as I record this, as of this moment, we are, in the thick of renovations of our new home here in the Noosa hinterland. And as our new home was being created before us, it was a journey that we embarked on together, my wife Silvana and I, right? So Silvana was not a fan of embarking on this journey at all, but at the same time could see the significant benefits of doing this, right? She had expressed to me at the beginning of this journey that she could not handle multiple and simultaneous chunks of uncertainty. So this meant that she could only handle one piece of news or development at the one time when it came to the house, right? Now, as you may appreciate, if you've renovated yourself before or known someone who's renovated a house, the renovation journey is an emotional roller coaster. And on some days, there were multiple decisions that had to be made. There was also the emotional component, especially when it came to the money surprises, which are still coming today. And suddenly our budget gets blown completely out of the water. Now, given that Sylv didn't seem great at handling multiple chunks of uncertainty at any one point in time, I wasn't able to completely express to her what was going on for me, how I was feeling, and also to share with her other decisions that needed to be made in order to keep our project momentum moving. So after the initial 3 months or so, I could feel energy I didn't like building up within me. On one particular day, right, we're all heading out, Silvana and I and our 2 boys, for a day trip. And one of my boys was taking forever to get into our car. It may have been only 5 minutes, but it felt like it was like half an hour or something. To shake things up, I got out of our car and with a full head of steam, I started to yell as I was approaching the front door to my son, like really loud, to hurry up. And at the same time, I happened to slip over and land on my butt, right? It was ridiculous. And this took the anger to a whole nother level, if you could take it to a whole nother level. I then got up and I slammed our car fob, the keys, like the fob, to the ground, smashing it into an unrecognizable mess. Knowing at the same time that to replace one of those, it's $500, right? I had transformed into a child throwing all of its toys out of its pram. So Nicholas, my son, came out of the house and quietly slipped into the car as I just realized what I'd done. The anger was intense and it was quick. And after the dust settled, along with a big apology to my family, our day got started. Now, the anger was a spontaneous release of unexpressed frustration. So that was which was getting suppressed. It was then triggered and projected onto my son. So my son became the trigger, the source of the trigger, but the projection comes from me. So this is a clear and simple example of projection. Now, the reality is that projection for many people goes a lot deeper, with layers and layers of unexpressed emotions gathered over decades, which have been projected onto others as judgment, fear, drama, harsh words, and so on. And if needing a fast release as anger, it needs a fast release in the form of anger or fits of laughter. Unfortunately, anger is probably more common than the fits of laughter. It seems that the longer and deeper the unexpressed emotions are, the more they tend to be projected like a leaky valve. Interesting, isn't it? Then every so often, something triggers them in their day. I'm talking about people in general. Something will trigger us, and then all hell breaks loose. Now, often, whether it's conscious or unconscious, and I believe it's more unconscious than conscious. So, of course, unconscious means out of awareness. Conscious means in our awareness. I have found in my journey so far, in what I've been doing for the last 16 years as a coach and trainer, is that people often find what I call safe targets to project their pent-up, unexpressed emotions to. Some of these range from road rage, right? So people on the road abusing people at the footy or the umpire. I've seen people at the football lose their bananas, if that makes any sense, abusing the umpire. It's just so awful, but I can appreciate that this is a release for people, right? And, and for some people, it's just a continual, abruption and rudeness that they might have toward the waiter at the cafe or something, right? So the layers and layers can get really deep. And I'm giving you an example here, a framework or an appreciation, I hope, an insight into how it is a projection works and why it is that we sometimes will feel anger and not know why. And if it's something that's been suppressed for a long time, we actually need a professional platform of some kind, or to see somebody who can help us express that or help us connect with it first and release it. It has to be released. Otherwise, it just stays in the body. So, to minimize the potential negative impact of projection, right, we need to have resourceful strategies to express these emotions. So I really hope, and I'm about to go through a couple of really, really important strategies here. Simple, but really important strategies. And at least what my intention of this particular episode of Insights is to prevent further build-up of suppressed emotions in anyone listening to this, right? That's the intention of this episode. So let me just say it again, if I could. To minimize the potential negative impact of projection, we need to have resourceful strategies to express emotions. Now remember, emotions are energy, and energy is always moving and transforming. So it's either transforming into anger, laughter, or some other expression, right? The more we move the energy, in other words, express the emotion, the less likely it needs to be projected onto somebody else, right? Especially somebody that we love. So here are two key resourceful strategies to release emotion. The first one, actual physical movement can be a very effective way of releasing emotion. So considering that everything is energy, physical movement can be a magical way of expressing emotion. You could choose your movement based on your interests. So, for example, it could be running or yoga or dance. This physical movement can also be a mental or spiritual movement. So, for example, playing an instrument, embracing the world of art and immersing literally in it, expressing yourself artistically, or being creative in any which way that you find resonates with your soul, which makes you feel good. If it feels good, if that release feels good, whether it's running, dance, music, learning how to play the piano, doing yoga, going to art classes, whatever it is, if it feels good, you are moving the energy along well. So feeling good about that physical movement means that you're doing the thing. Does that make sense? So for example, not everyone's into running. I mean, I happen, as a lot of you know, I love running. It's one of my, I run 5 days a week minimum. I love it. And I've just happened to find a way to release energy, pent up energy. That's one way of doing it. But for you, running, might be something that's really boring and you're not really interested. So it's about finding other ways is the point I want to make. So physical movement, mental movement, spiritual movement through any of these kinds of hobbies is a key resourceful strategy to release emotions. There's a second one. That's the first one. The second one is where we have a relationship that, we can lean on so we can have an unedited, unfiltered, judgment-free conversation where you can say the most inappropriate of things and you won't be judged by your friend, your partner, your best mate, your girlfriend, whoever it might be. This is a high-quality way of expressing pent-up emotion. This doesn't mean that you let out your anger on your friend, right? That's projection, right? It means that you have a mature, grounded expression of what is frustrating you in this moment, or talking about something that you might find confusing, or something that's scaring you or concerning you or stressing you at the moment. It's a wonderful way to express that. Like, to give you an example, going back to the renovation journey, there has been many, many, many money surprises with our house. I mean, I was expecting them, but not this many, right? And sometimes on some particular days, I'd let this get to me and I'd feel a little bit stressed about that. And so having my wife to talk to about that before I suppressed that emotion, I would talk with her about it. And by her listening and just having a conversation, it's amazing how that emotion gets released before it pents up, it gets stuck in the body, if that makes sense. So these are the two key areas. These are two key resourceful strategies to release emotions. Physical movement, mental movement, spiritual movement, whichever sings to your soul. And the second one is having a relationship of some kind, whether it's a girlfriend, a partner, a husband, a boyfriend, a close mate, whoever it might be, someone that you can be, and this is the important part, unedited, unfiltered, and judgment-free. So you can say anything, and this friend will be there for you no matter what. They won't judge you. They won't minimize you. They won't even validate you. They'll just simply be with you so you can get out what you need to get out. And this is a great stage, this relationship, where you can, talk about something that's frustrating you or something that's confusing you or something that is stressing you or perhaps something that's even, scary. So that's really, really important. So there it is. I really hope that you found something useful from this insight number 80. Really appreciate you tuning in. And as I was saying at the opening of this wonderful episode, I've enjoyed delivering this. I hope you've enjoyed listening to this as much as I have putting it together for you. So as I was saying at the very start, quick housekeeping. For those of you who want to dive into the world of profiling or just simply curious to learn more about yourself, there's a free training I have coming up that goes for a day and a half on November 24, 25, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Melbourne, Sydney time on November 24. It's on Zoom, and then 10 till 1 Melbourne, Sydney time on day 2, which is just half a day. All right, so to register for that, all you need to do is go over to joepane.com.au, and it's quite obvious where you need to click when you go to that page. Thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate your attention, your time. It's a privilege and an honor that you are listening. It really is, and I deeply appreciate that. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.